Ah, the inspiration for the back of the turtle. No one thing in particular. I come up with ideas for stories, snatches of conversation, maybe a character or something like that, and then I try to build on it. So I suppose it all kind of comes together in this great mess in the end. Part of it, of course, is this interest that I have in native mythology and non-native mythology for that matter, and so that provides a background for the story. And I suppose you could say that I built off of that in some ways, but really it's kind of a screwy process with no rules. I just begin on a project at any point that I can get into it on, and then we see if we can go from there, and then I just keep going until I have a novel or until I'm so upset with it that I stick it away in a drawer someplace, never to see the light of day. Yeah, the background stuff, that native background that I use in the back of the turtle, that I've used in my other novels too, as a matter of fact, and in my nonfiction, that's always been a part of my writing. So that goes back to the very beginnings of when I began to write, and that really hasn't changed over the years. I don't think I've written a book that didn't have some component of native oral storytelling, native mythology, native history in it. I can't imagine that I would write anything that didn't have that as a component. Yeah, the material itself is one thing, that native material is one thing, but for me as a storyteller, I've heard oral stories before. I've heard those voices, and so I suppose in some ways I try to emulate those in my writing. My writing tends to be fairly oral, and when I'm writing my stuff, I'll read it out loud to myself, not just in my head, but actually read it out loud in the room. And when I'm all done, generally the last couple of passes, my partner and I will read it out loud against each other. So I'll read 4 or 5 chapters and she'll follow along on the text. Then she'll read 4 or 5 chapters, I'll follow along on the text, just to make sure. It's a way of editing, but it's also a way to hear the story out loud, to see if the words themselves create that kind of I guess musical configuration, storytelling configuration that's pleasing to the ears of an audience if it was an oral performance that I was doing. Of course, sometimes I do. When I do the readings, it does become an oral performance. Well, the most difficult elements of the book, probably me. Getting me to sit down and work on the book until it gets to a particular stage. There's a part of the book, that first part of the book, when I'm just flapping around like a fish on a beach trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And that's fairly painful, and anything that comes along that will distract me, I allow it to distract me. So if I've got let's say I'm trying to learn harmonica, so I'll run off and do a harmonica conference rather than stay home and work. I may have a new photo project that I go off and do, anything to get me out of working on the novel. And that continues until I get to a particular place in the novel where I can see the end, where I can see the whole thing complete. And at that point, then I get fairly serious, and I start working on it full time, day and night. So, yeah, I think the most difficult element of writing those books is just myself. Do I think that any of those things I learned transfers to the reader? I don't know. I have people who come up to me and say, you know, one of my books changed their lives. I have no idea what that means. And I mean, I know they're saying that to let me know that they not only enjoyed the book, but it meant something to them. But it's hard for me to fathom how one of my books could change their life. I'm not sure it changes mine in the end. I think there were moments in the writing, those creative moments in the writing, when I'm as happy as I can possibly be, but those vanish. By the time the book is a physical thing, I've lost all love for it generally, and I'm on to the next project. It's not that I hate it or anything like that, it's just that it's done, it's gone, it's out the door. It's got a life of its own, and I'm only a small part of that life.